The people were tired. They'd seen their city invaded by foreigners, the temple razed to the ground, and they'd suffered a comprehensive defeat. They'd been taken prisoner and forced to walk for hundreds of miles across the desert to Babylon. They were living as exiles, far from home, far from everything they knew, in a place that felt strange and inhospitable. They'd been beaten and uprooted. They'd suffered the loss of everything they knew. They had no idea what the future might hold. They'd survived terrible traumas, and now they were tired. They were angry and resentful. They were depressed and lacking in energy. They were hopeless. We haven't been taken into exile as the Israelites were, but we have suffered. We are still suffering a terrible trauma, one that feels comparable to the exile for our own time. At the beginning of the lockdown, the shock brought out the best in us. There was a great outpouring of generosity and kindness and selflessness. People wanted to help their neighbours, to do shopping and collect prescriptions, to keep in touch with those who are isolated. The handy among us sewed scrubs or made scrub bags. But 11 weeks on, that energy can't be sustained, and many of us are tired. The effort needed to live under these difficult circumstances is exhausting. We are growing irritable and anxious. Some of us want to come out of lockdown now. Some of us are very afraid to come out of the lockdown. Many are angry at those in charge, but others are disillusioned and apathetic. People are grieving at all they have lost and anxious about what the future holds. We want to get back to normal. We fear that we may never be normal again. Just as the exiles asked where God was in this strange land, as they tried to make sense of what had happened to them, so we too might ask, where is God in the pandemic? Just as the exiles did, we might well ask, why has God let this terrible thing happen to us? Our reading today from Isaiah comes from chapter 40, which begins, "Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God." But what comfort has God for us when we are at such a low ebb? God's response in this passage from Isaiah is to tell us something of who and what he is, in a series of rhetorical questions. Who else, he asks, has weighed and measured the earth and all that is within it? Who has advised God? Who knows more than God? God made the world without guidance from anyone else, with such care and attention to detail that it's beyond anything we can imagine. We may not be able to measure every drop of water in the oceans or to weigh a mountain, but God can. There's nothing we can teach God about how to be God, and nothing that we can give him that would be great enough or good enough for him. Next to him, we are about as small as we can be. At this point, you might be thinking, well, that's not very comforting. And it isn't very comforting to be told you're about as small as you can be and utterly insignificant. But God then goes on to say, just how much he cares for his people. "Why do you say that I have forgotten you?" he asks. "Haven't you heard? Haven't you seen?" We may be exhausted like the exiles, but God is tireless. We may be powerless in the face of tragedy, but God is the everlasting creator of everything that is. We may not know what to do for the best, or even how to comprehend what is happening to us, but God's understanding is unsearchable and infinite. And crucially, when we feel abandoned and unloved, God continues in his endless care for us. The strongest and most energetic among us may faint and grow weary, but if we wait on God, he will renew our strength. We may feel that we're stumbling exhaustedly along, growing more and more depressed and hopeless. But if we wait on God, we will be renewed and not faint. In a wonderful image, he promises that he will lift us up like the invisible currents of air that birds use. And we shall mount up into the air with wings like an eagle. All we have to do is wait. And God's promises will be made good, because that is who he is. One day, we will be able to look back on all this and see that we have gained new wisdom and found new ways of living. In the meantime, we are left with hard waiting, the wearying, boring persistence of keeping going in this hard time, with harder times yet perhaps to come. How can we wait upon God and keep faith with his promises? At the end of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus appears to the 11 remaining disciples. In the face of loss and trauma, Jesus' terrible death on the cross, his incomprehensible return to life, the knowledge that one among them had betrayed him. In the face of uncertainty, fear, and confusion, they arrive on the mountain. When he comes, some of them believe and worship him. Some of them, however, doubt. Like us, they find it hard to hold on to their faith when their world is collapsing and changing. Nevertheless, he gives them a task to do, just a small one. Go out and transform the world. Make disciples. Make the world ready for the coming of the kingdom. And he also gives them comfort, something to hold on to in the days and weeks and months and years ahead. Remember, he says, remember, I am with you always, to the end of the age. The God who is the creator of the cosmos, and the God who came as a helpless child to die on the cross, joined together with the God who is the inspirer and comforter to say, I will be with you always. As we wait upon God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, he gives us his assurance that he will never leave us, never abandon us, never forget us, never cease to love us. As we journey through our time of exile, stretching out into an as yet unknowable future. We can trust that wherever we go, God is with us. Amen.